Howdy, folks. It's 3 a.m. Someone is standing outside an Apple store in the rain. They've been there for 6 hours. They are number 47 in line. They are cold, sleep deprived, and genuinely miserable. And they are doing this for a phone. Not because their current phone is broken, not because their life depends on it, because it's a new one. Because the camera is slightly better, or because it's thinner, or because, and this is the part that nobody says out loud, because when they pull it out at work on Monday, people might notice. Might. The things you own end up owning you. And that was quoted by Chuck Palahniuk from Fight Club. So what does it say about us as a society that we will suffer in the rain at 3 a.m. for a rectangle of glass, but we won't sit still for 5 minutes to ask ourselves what we actually value? That's what this episode is about, folks. Not to judge the person in line. I've been that person in different ways. Maybe you have too. But to ask the harder question, which is, how did we get here? How did we end up pouring our time, our energy, our identity, and our self-worth into things that, well, let's be completely honest, we cannot take with us when we die? Welcome to the Manufactured Mind. I'm your host, Robey, and today we're going all the way in on value. What it is, what it isn't, and how a society built on selling you things has systematically conned you into confusing price tags with meaning. So, let me start with something that should be obvious, but somehow isn't. Everything you own right now, your car, your clothes, your house, your savings account, your watch, your sneakers, your phone, every single one of those things existed, maybe not the phone, but existed before you were born and will exist after you die. Depending on when you were born, the phone may not have been there. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who, by the way, was born a slave, said it like this: "Never say of anything, 'I have lost it.' Say instead, 'I have returned it.'" Your house, you are borrowing it from time. Your money, already spent in a future you will not see. Your body, it does not even come with you when you leave. And the Bhagavad Gita, as I often reference, one of the oldest spiritual texts on earth, is even more direct. Krishna tells Arjuna, the soul is never born, never dies. It cannot be cut by weapons, burned by fire, wet by water, or dried by wind. So, what that means philosophically is this: the only thing about you that is real, the only thing that is truly yours, is your consciousness, your awareness, the part of you that is reading these words right now, the part of you that knows you exist, and that, according to every major contemplative tradition that has ever existed on this planet, is the most undervalued thing in modern life. So, what does the data actually say? Now, let me bring this back to Earth, because philosophy is great, but let's talk about what is actually happening to us right now in real time. Researchers at Harvard conducted the longest study of human happiness ever run. Started in 1938. Followed people for over 80 years. They tracked everything: income, career success, cholesterol levels, social status, everything. You know what the single biggest predictor of health, happiness, and longevity was at 80? Age 80? It wasn't wealth. It was not wealth. It was not career achievement. It wasn't even physical health. It was the quality of your close relationships at age 50. That is it. How well you loved people and let people love you. That is what determined whether you thrived or declined in the final chapters of your life, and arguably your entire life. And yet, what does our culture spend the majority of its energy optimizing for? The resume, the bank account, the body that photographs well, the lifestyle that performs on Instagram. We have inverted the values hierarchy so completely that we are working 60-hour weeks to afford houses we are too tired to enjoy, let alone spend time in. To impress people we do not actually like. To feel a momentary hit of status that evaporates before we even pull out of the fucking dealership. Now here's where it gets really interesting, folks, because this is not just a philosophical failure. This is a documented psychological mechanism by which our brains get hijacked. It is called hedonic adaptation, and it is basically your brain's built-in betrayal of your best intentions. And here's how it works. You want something, a new car, a raise, a better apartment, you think. And this feels completely real. When I get that thing, I will finally feel good. And you get it, and for a little while, you do feel good. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a few days, maybe a few months. And then, this is the cruel part, your brain just recalibrates. That thing becomes the new normal. The pleasure evaporates. And now you need the next big thing to feel the same hit you got from the last thing. Very similar to drug addiction, by the way. There is a reason they call it the hedonic treadmill. You are running, working, acquiring, and going absolutely nowhere in terms of lasting satisfaction. A 1978 study shocked the research world. It compared lottery winners to people who had become paraplegic from accidents. Within a year, both groups drifted back towards surprisingly similar levels of daily happiness. The lottery winners actually reported less pleasure from ordinary life activities than people who had never won anything. Think about that. We are literally wired to be unsatisfied by the very things we are convinced will satisfy us. And the consumer economy, the algorithm, the advertisement, the influencer, the Black Friday sale is built entirely on exploiting that wiring. And the Nobel Prize that described a manufactured mind. So let's get into this one. Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize for his research on how humans assign value, found something that is both brilliant and, when you understand it, heartbreaking. He showed that we do not evaluate absolute states. We evaluate changes relative to a reference point. So a $70,000 salary feels like a windfall to someone who was earning $50,000 last year. And it feels like a catastrophe to someone who earned $90,000 last year. We are not measuring the thing itself. We are measuring the delta, the distance from where we were. He also found that losses hurt roughly twice as intensely as equivalent gains feel good. So, lose $100, it stings deeply. Find $100 feels good, but nowhere near as good as the loss hurt. And here is what that actually describes. A mind has been programmed by a materialistic economy into mistaking the relative for the real. A mind that has been manufactured, shaped by consumption culture to evaluate itself through comparison rather than through any stable interior sense of worth. The Stoic response to this is not to argue with the research. It is to train the mind out of that pattern. Marcus Aurelius practiced what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, deliberate contemplation of loss, every morning. He was manually overriding the reference point dependency that Kahneman would later map. He was choosing a different reference point, one where everything he had was already understood as borrowed. Kahneman showed us the cage. Excuse me, folks. The contemplative traditions show us how to walk out of it. And then there's the mirror lie, performance self versus real self. And so I want to talk about something that I believe is the defining psychological crises of our generation. We have confused the performance of a self with having an actual self. And not just my generation, it's because I'm a millennial. It's gotten even worse with the newer generations. But this has always been a thing. It's been every generation. So think about your social media feed. What do you see? You see the vacation, not the debt that paid for it. You see the gym selfie, but not the 3 days that they didn't go this week. You see the couple's photo, but not the argument on the way to take the photo. You see the new car, but not the payment plan. Everyone is curating a highlight reel and presenting it as a life. And then, and this is the tragedy, comparing their behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. The Instagram of the dinner has eaten the dinner. The selfie at the concert has replaced being at the concert. The personal brand has eaten the person. The psychologist Carl Rogers spent his career studying what happens when people are only loved conditionally, when acceptance comes with strings attached. He called it conditions of worth. The internalized belief that you are only valuable when you perform correctly. The result is a self that is fundamentally split, a person performing a version of themselves for an audience, while the actual person, the interior person, the conscious being underneath the curated image, quietly starves. And social media has industrialized that process. Every like is a microdose of conditional regard. Every comment, every follower count. The algorithm has built a dopamine delivery system that runs on the same neural circuitry as gambling. Intermittent, unpredictable rewards that keep you pulling the lever. The status game is rigged, folks. The economist Thorstein Veblen called this in 1899, before the internet even existed, obviously. He observed that past a certain level of basic comfort, people do not buy things for use. They buy them to signal. The expensive watch is not about telling time. The luxury car is not about transportation. They are billboards that say, I am worth something, please see me. I'm right here, please see me. I'm important. I got this thing that you don't have. And here's the structural problem with that. Status is relative. For your status signal to mean anything, someone else has to have less. It is a zero-sum game. The total amount of genuine satisfaction it produces across society as a whole approaches zero. You cannot win a game designed to keep you playing, if that makes sense. So, what actually has value? And let me be direct about what I believe and what the research, the philosophy, and the deathbed testimony of actual human beings consistently confirm. Genuine value lives in the things that cannot be taken from you, cannot be photographed, and cannot be purchased. Connection. Number one, connection. The Harvard study, 80 years of data, told us it is the relationships, not the network, not the follower count, not the professional contacts, the people who will pick up the phone at 2 a.m., the people who knew you before you had anything and will still be there after and if it's gone. This is where the research says the good life lives. 2, family. And I mean the real version, the messy, imperfect, sometimes painful version, not the family content, the actual people. Palliative care nurses, the people who sit with the dying for a living, have documented over and over that people do not wish they had worked more. They wish they had been more present with the people they loved. That is not a metaphor, folks. That is dying people telling you the truth that living people refuse to hear. 3, your interior self, not your brand, not your image, your actual character. Whether you tell the truth when it costs you something, whether you act with integrity when nobody is watching. The Stoics called this virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. These are the things that cannot be taken from you by circumstance. They are yours in a way that nothing external ever can be. Four, dignity. Dignity is not something you earn. It is something you either protect or surrender. Every time you compromise your honesty for approval, you are making a transaction, trading a permanent asset for a temporary one. And eventually, that transaction catches up with you. 5, integrity. Integrity means literally wholeness, the absence of the gap between who you are and who you present yourself to be. A life that is the same on the inside as it is on the outside. That is what Rogers was trying to restore in his patients. That is what every contemplative tradition points toward. That is the thing the algorithm cannot sell you because it cannot be sold. Now, I want to talk about something more personal because this episode is not just philosophy. It connects to something that I've been doing somewhat deliberately, which is using social media as a progress archive for my recovery journey. And I want to explain the psychology of why that works and why it is different from the trap I just spent the last 20 minutes describing. So, the key distinction. There's a researcher named Peter Gawitzer at NYU who found something counterintuitive about public goal announcements. When you announce an identity aspiration, like I am going to become a runner or I am going to get my life together, and people acknowledge it, your brain does something sneaky. It treats the announcement itself as partial evidence that you've already become that person or completed that goal. The motivational tension that would have driven you to actually do the work partially releases. The goal was symbolically completed before it was physically completed. The announcement substituted the action, so to speak, or substituted for the action. But that dynamic flips completely when you post the completed behavior instead of the intended identity. Now, I have posted things in a sense to hold myself publicly accountable, because in turn that has helped me follow through. But every time I post a video of my recovery journey, not I am going to get better, but here's where I actually am today. This is what I'm dealing with. Blah, blah. I am not making a promise. I am casting a vote. I am creating a record that says this is the kind of person I already am. And I can look back at that record, and it tells me a story about myself rooted in what I actually did, not what I said I was going to do. James Clear calls this identity-based behavior change in atomic habits. Every action is a vote for the person you are becoming. The behavior comes first. The identity follows the evidence. The difference between using social media as a progress tracker and using it as a status engine is the difference between an internal and external locus of evaluation. So, am I doing this because it serves my growth, or because the audience's approval has become the oxygen my self-worth breathes? That question is the one worth sitting with. So, my closing invitation. Here's what I want to leave you with. You are going to die. I am going to die. Every person you have ever loved, every person you have ever envied, every person whose Instagram life has ever made you feel like yours was not enough. They too are all going to die. And when that moment comes, the algorithm will not be there. The follower count will not be there. The car, the house, the bank account, the wardrobe, none of it will be in the room. The only things in the room will be the people who loved you and the quality of the person you chose to be. The Stoics called this memento mori. Remember that you will die. Not as a morbid exercise, but as a clarifying one. Because when you hold death as a real thing, not a concept, the hierarchy of value recognizes itself instantly. The trivial reveals itself as trivial. The essential reveals itself as essential. What actually matters is connection. Family, the interior self. You have been building in the quiet moments that nobody posts about. Your honesty, your dignity, your integrity. Those are not just nice words, folks. They are the only possessions that are actually yours. Everything else, you're borrowing it. And at some point, sooner than you think, it will be returned. So choose carefully what you spend your time becoming, because the self you are constructing right now, quietly, behind the scenes of everything you present to the world, that is the only self you actually have. That is the only thing the heart rate monitor stops for. So, if you found value in this episode, folks, and I truly, genuinely hope that somebody does, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share the episode with somebody who might be struggling with value and valuing themselves. I think this could really help. I really do. It's been an eye-opener for me once I put it all together. Having said, I'm Robey. This has been the Manufactured Mind podcast. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Remember, chin up, chest out, walk tall, stay frosty, and semper fi. Peace out.